Let's do a little post-mortem here. Here's Rob Pelinka, GM of the Lakers, also president of the Lakers. Remember, he got a promotion, I think in no small part because he pulled off the Luka trade. Then they lose in the first round after the Luka trade. Here's Rob Pelinka talking about the priority heading into the offseason.
When you make a huge trade at the deadline where you trade your starting center for a point guard, of course, that's going to create significant issues with the roster. And we saw some of those play out. We know this off-season, one of our primary goals is going to be to add size in our front court at the center position, and that's going to just be part of the equation. We know we have a lot of work to do on the roster, and it'll look different next year for sure.
Yeah. Again, I think he's like, it'll look different. And the way it usually works when you're building a team at the start of the year, and I can't speak to running an NBA team. It's far different, but there are some similarities, right? An injury here or there can change. Hey, this is what we thought would be. You make a trade midseason, which I don't think anybody thought they would make going back before the trade deadline. Like nobody was saying, hey, you know what's going to happen? Luka to the Lakers. It just wasn't discussed. And so they did make a change. But I think it's fascinating, this whole Lakers thing. Like, isn't today the day that Nico Harrison looks like he did the right thing? Isn't it? I mean, it's just, sports is amazing on how people get caught up in the heat of the moment. And they just lose, frankly, all their faculties. They just do. They poop and pee themselves all over themselves. They can't control themselves. Because when Luka and the Lakers were good, oh my God, this is the biggest heist ever, right? Remember, Jason Kidd's like, some people compare this to the Babe Ruth trade. Cool. Like, yeah, no, not cool at all. But people were comparing it to that. And then now you fast forward to, the Lakers only played 4 playoff games. Is that right? 5 playoff games? Yes, 4 games to 1. 5 playoff games in. People are like, hey, Luka's not in great shape, and boy, he really doesn't play defense, and maybe Nico Harrison's on to something. Without playing a game, without playing one single game in the actual playoffs, the narrative around Nico Harrison from this guy's the biggest idiot, buffoon, when is Dallas going to get rid of him, to, he might have been on to something. And I guess that's sports, right? I guess that's sports. Because we do the same thing with LeBron James. When he plays well, you're like, GOAT, greatest of all time. At 40 years old, I've heard several people on television, okay, various levels of respect on television, but on television, they played, they've done something, whatever, say, at times, LeBron's still one of the 5 best players in the NBA. And again, in a small sample size, in one game here, one game there, at 40 years old, you can go like, it's pretty amazing. Okay, I didn't actually watch the game, but sure. And then last night, you see him falter in the fourth quarter, and suddenly it's LeChoke. You're like, well, he's 40, played the whole game the game before. It's, oh, no. When he doesn't play well, he's 40. No, he's always been 40. And you have to always take it with a grain of salt. But this is just, I don't know, it's a remarkable thing that happened last night. The turnaround for Nico Harrison without doing a single thing, right? It's like winning a battle without firing a single shot. It's crazy, the turnaround sports. Beyer, what are your thoughts on when you're watching the Lakers? I mean, there's a more basketball-centric discussion that I don't think people necessarily have gotten yet. We'll get to that in a second. But what are your thoughts on just how much the world changed, spun off its axis with the Lakers falling again last night to the Wolves?
Yeah, it was, Doug, it was kind of like almost a 3-step process in my mind in thinking that the Mavericks and the Lakers would have been better off this season for not doing the trade. In just terms of what Dallas has and didn't have, and what the Lakers didn't have, and then you had the Mark Williams deal end up falling apart and him not being acquired. So we knew that there was a gaping hole, and if you could rewind time, I think for the short term, both teams would maybe say, all right, Mavs would be better with Luka, Lakers would be better with Anthony Davis. But then the third step in all of this, Doug, just came to the point of, and you touched on the move, and we heard Rob Pelinka off the top, it's that acquiring Luka as part of this deal was the long-term move, and it came at sacrificing one of LeBron James's final seasons as of trying to win another title. And that was the most, I guess, jarring part of it. But if we go back to early February and this trade isn't made, I think both teams are probably in better position. I don't know standings-wise and seed-wise, you wouldn't be able to say that, but in a better standing and position to succeed in the playoffs than both Dallas and the Lakers ended up doing.
No question. No question. It was a fairly impetuous move, and it was like, oh, we get done kind of in cover of darkness, on a Saturday night. Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. It's like, is that really how we want it to be done? You couldn't have just waited to the offseason? But I do think that this pending potential contract extension, was the energy behind it. It was just like, we can't sign this guy to a $315 million, 4-year guaranteed deal. I can't do it. And here's why. As I told you, now I'm not saying you, Dan Beyer, I'm saying you, listener world, you, Nico is not an idiot. I've never understood how somebody can go from building a championship roster last year to a complete buffoon this year when the truth is somewhere in the middle. He took some risk last year, took some heat last year for some of the moves. People said Kyrie wouldn't work or you shouldn't extend Kyrie. He did. It worked. And then Kyrie got hurt. And Kyrie has had a lot of injuries in his career, although not an ACL injury like he suffered this year. But many of the other moves, Gafford coming over, that was him. P.J. Washington coming over, that was him. Even hiring Jason Kidd, that was him. Remember, Jason Kidd was not thought of as a quality game coach in the NBA going back to his days in Milwaukee or the Nets. He did. They got to the NBA Finals, and no one mentioned any of that when they traded away Luka. It was, fire this guy. He's an idiot. There's got to be something done. People in Dallas actually said, and we had people come on the radio who said, hey, even if Dallas wins a championship without Luka, this is still a bad trade, which is the dumbest dumb stuff I've ever heard in my life. But it does play into what I was getting to previously, which we're so overreactive to the immediate thing, and we can't just catch our breath and have some perspective on some stuff. And I actually credit Jay Stu, because Jay Stu was like, and Dan, I'll get to you because you're saying the right thing as well. Jay Stu we're talking today, he's like, hey, wasn't this a long-term move for the Lakers? He didn't get when the playoff, when the betting lines came out. You're like, I don't, explain this one to me. And I can't, except for the power of LeBron James. And I think that's really it. And what Dan's saying is right, which is like, look, truth is, your teams were built constructed a certain way. You should have let it played out and then make this trade in the offseason. My only pushback that, Dan, would be I actually think that was part of the genius with Nico is he probably looked around the landscape of it and thought, this won't be perfect, but no one's perfect in the West. And if I can build this incredible wall of defenders and just figure out a way to let Kyrie loose, like we might be able to do something special, winning games based upon our defense, which, oh yeah, by the way, is what Minnesota really has done, right? They have all these like-sized defenders where you can't mismatch hunt. But you're right. I mean, truth is, you had a team constructed. You completely changed the construction or the layout of the team. And remember, the trade deadline is after the All-Star break. So this is late in the year. And what did you expect the outcome to be? But I think the answer is because of LeBron James, there's never any happy medium. It's either the worst or the best, and nothing.
Well, and this deal did come before the All-Star game because it was
right.
but you're much more forgiving of Nico in all of this because in your words, I was one of the people that said I felt that the Mavericks fans would rather have Luka on their team than to have their non-Luka Mavericks win a championship. Now, time may heal all wounds. I'm curious on how next year and the year after plays out, but I still don't think Nico is off the hook despite the great moves that he made the year prior. And we were giving him his flowers at that point. And I think
were, but I don't know if like there's no
like the addition of Gafford and PJ Washington last year were huge. I mean, it was the reason why they were able to navigate the West, and then they just didn't have enough against Boston. But like those trade deadline deals that they did last year were magnificent. And I think that we gave Dallas the credit at that point. And then I feel he gave it all back with this trade. Whereas Pelinka, and I agree with you in essence of if you want to say that, look, Pelinka has made some good moves with Austin Reeves and Dalton Knecht, who was involved in that Mark Williams deal that ended up falling apart, and bringing those guys and say, okay, he's made some good draft picks, he's done this and that. I'm fine with saying that, but to have Luka kind of fall in your lap and then say, okay, as an organization that's built on stars, all right, we'll do that deal. Yes, I think I would assume almost every other GM in the league would do it. And so I'm just not ready to forgive Nico. And Pelinka, I just think, said, all right, we'll sacrifice LeBron potential championship year. I mean, after all, we did draft his son, and in exchange for that, they get their franchise star for the next decade.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by where the Lakers go from here, because here's the problem. Okay, the Lakers lost last night for a myriad of reasons, and a lot of people want to point to their defense and rebounding. That's a huge part of it, right? Again, here's the impetuous nature of the basketball fan. The most made fun of star in the NBA is who, Dan Beyer?
Rudy Gobert?
Yes. Okay. Every year it's make fun of Rudy Gobert. He stinks. He's overpaid. You can't play him in big playoff games. And all the Lakers did, like, this is the whole thing with, like, why are they playing Maxi Kleber? Like, who did Maxi Kleber play for last year? It's the same thing that you try and do with Rudy Gobert. Make him guard out in the court in space, and then make him score in the post because he has no post moves. And you end up winning that matchup. 3 is more than 2. Efficiency as opposed to inefficiency, right? And so that's all he tried to do and exploited. It didn't work. But the issue with it is that though LeBron looks like he should be a small ball 5, right? Like LeBron's 6'8", long arms, big hands, 265 pounds, strong as an ox. And he used to be able to guard point guards and you'd think bigs. He's never been able to guard inside. He is not a good post player offensively or defensively. As opposed to Draymond Green, who's had half the offensive career, half the accolades, and like he doesn't look bad, but it's not like his body looks like a Greek god like LeBron. At 6'5" he can. That's what he does. So, but the problem with the Lakers from now until whenever LeBron decides, and LeBron is going to decide when he wants to not play again, is your 2 best players are your 2 worst defenders, and that doesn't work. You know, you can get away with 1, you can't get away with 2. And last night they had 3. Right? Their 3 best offensive players are their 3 worst defensive players, and there's just no hiding that. And none of them rebound, and none of them play particularly good defense, and it will never work. It hasn't, and it won't, and that's why, you know, Nico Harrison, when he goes defense wins championships, it's defense and rebounding. Right? I learned that the hard way. You can play big, you can play small, but your small guys better rebound. You can play big, but your big guys better rebound. And the big guys better be able to contain the ball, guard the 3-point line, but you got to rebound. So I think they're forever in that space.